So this is a topology that we are going to simulate in Packet Tracer. With this topology, what we are going to see is first we will configure the IP address for the PC, and we will see how we are going to configure the IP address for the PC. Once we configure the IP address, the next thing what we are going to do is our favorite thing, which is default gateway, where this all topic is based on. So you will see how you can configure a default gateway for your PC. And finally, we will create and configure the IP addresses for the router interfaces and check the connectivity from this PC0 towards the router R2, the router 2. So let's jump right in. So here I have the topology that I was actually discussing about, and we have already seen in the previous video how to create a topology like this using Packet Tracer just by dragging and dropping the items. Now, how to configure it? Once you have this PC, you double click on the PC, and I'm actually using Mac, but it is pretty much same in whichever device it is, whether it be Windows or Linux, it's going to be the same. So once you click on that, what you have to click is config, and under config you'll be able to see the default gateway. But before we put in the default gateway, you can go to the interface, fast Ethernet 0, and in that there is an IP configuration. So you can see the port status is on, bandwidth, duplex is auto, and then this is the MAC address of the interface of that PC, and we will talk more about that in a moment. But here is where we want to concentrate now: IP configuration. And IP is IPv4 configuration. There is a DHCP. We are going to learn about this protocol as well in the course, but currently we can actually go ahead and then do the static, because I'm going to give a static IP address to the PC's interface. Just on a high level, DHCP means there will be a server who is actually giving the IP address to this PC instead of you statically typing in. So the moment you click on DHCP, the static IP thing is going to go away. I will not be able to edit it. But here I'm going to put it as static, and I'm going to give this IP address as 192.168, let's say 1.10. This is the IP address of the PC, and you can see the subnet mask is auto-filled as class full. So this is how you configure the IP address, which was our task 1. Now, what we also want is to configure the default gateway, right? So let's go to physical config, and then you can see there is the default gateway. Let's put a static default gateway here. So here the default gateway, tell me what should be the default gateway for this PC. It has to be the IP address of gig 000 of this router 2. Right? So assuming we are going to provide the IP address as 1.1 for that gateway, we are going to give the default gateway as 1.1. So now, just to make sure we are all in the same page, fast Ethernet IP address of the PC, and this is all configuration on the PC. It's going to be 192.168.1.0, so it knows what is his IP addresses, and whenever it wants to set a packet out, it just need to send this packet to the router R2. To send the packet to the router R2, you can come to fast Ethernet 0, and then you can provide the gateway, default gateway as 192.168.1.1, which is nothing but the IP address of this interface which is pointing towards this PC. It is the IP address of that router interface, which is going to be the default gateway. So this is how you configure the PC. Now let's go and configure the router. Same thing, double click on the router. You'll be able to see the router model, physical structure and stuff like that. But what we are interested is in the CLI, because we are going to do it on the CLI. So the router has booted up, and then it's asking whether you want to enter the initial configuration. I said no, and then you will get a prompt like press enter to get started. The moment you click enter, you will be having a specific host name by default. This is called as a host name, which is a name that is used to identify the router. So let's put this, since we have given the name as router 2, I'm going to give a host name first. So to do that, I will go over the configuration in detail later, but remember there is a command called enable, and then click enter, which actually gives you this particular prompt. After that, you do configuration terminal or config t, and then provide something called a command called hostname, and we call hostname router2. This provides the hostname as router2. Now you also provide interface IP address, so you can provide as interface. You want to provide an IP address to this interface G000. Notice that it is currently red, and notice the change that's going to happen once I get into that interface and then you do no shutdown. You can see that the moment I did no shutdown, the red became green. That means there is actually packet and signal going between these PC and the router, but we haven't configured the IP address yet. It's impossible to get all the details of the configuration in this video. If you guys are interested in how to configure the router, please put a comment below, and I can share the free video link or free course link for you to configure the IP, configure the routers, right? So I put here as IP address, and as I told here, it is going to be 192.168.1.1, 255.255.255.0, because I told that is the gateway for this one. So that's the configuration I want here. Click enter, and that's it you want to do. Now what we can check is, you will see when we are actually whether this router is able to reach this PC, which is having an IP address of 192.168.1.10, and then click enter. You can see that success rate is 80%. The first packet may get dropped because it's trying to access the first time. We'll get into why the first packet sometimes drops. There is a concept called RPRS solution happening. We'll get into those details later, but you can see here now you are able to communicate. This router is able to reach the PC, and more importantly, we will see whether this PC is able to communicate also, right? So if I do ipconfig, you can see this is the IP address for the PC, and this is the default gateway. You can check out the same thing and then see whether the IP address and default gateway is actually reachable. And you can see that the ping is a command to check the reachability, since it is actually giving reply, and that means it is actually getting a reply and it is able to reach the gateway as such. You can see that packet sent is 4, packet received is 4, loss is 0%. That means there is a proper reachability as such. So this is how you configure the PCs and configure the routers. How do you have seen how to configure the PC with an IP address. We have also seen how to configure the router with the IP address. Thanks for watching the video. We will see in the next video on how to configure a static route, how to tell this particular router that there is a network something here existing, and how do you configure that onto the router. So the PC will just send the packet here, and this router knows how to reach to this guy and back. We'll see that in the next video.